Every time someone shares their testimony, a light turns on for someone else. In fact, some of the biggest turning points in my own faith didn't happen in church. They actually happened because someone else chose to be honest about what they'd been through. Honestly, if I think about it, a lot of the hope that I have today came from moments where I heard someone else say, if God did it for me, then he can do it for you. Today, I want to talk about the power of testimonies and why your story may actually be more important than you think. You know, when I look back over my life and the moments that actually changed me, they weren't the most big and dramatic events. They were actually some of those quiet moments when somebody shared their story. They shared their struggles, their mistakes, or even their breakthroughs. Real testimonies have shaped my walk with God in ways that I didn't expect. They've encouraged me when I felt stuck, challenged me when I needed a reset, and they remind me that God steps into the mess long before we ever get it together. That's honestly why I'm so passionate about this topic, because I believe that testimonies matter. Your story matters. And that is a huge part of why this channel exists today. But before we go any further, let's clear something up, because I believe that a lot of people misunderstand what a testimony actually is. So, what is a testimony? I think a lot of people overcomplicate what a testimony is. It's not a polished speech, it's not a sermon, it's definitely not a highlight reel. A testimony is just someone saying, here's where I was, here's what happened, and here's what God did. It's simple, it's human, and it's real. It's the most personal kind of proof we have that God is still moving, not just in Bible stories, not just in pastors or leaders, but in everyday ordinary people. People like your brothers, your sisters, your friends, your family. People like you, people like me. And honestly, sometimes hearing someone talk about what God brought them through, it speaks louder than any perfectly crafted message ever could. Years ago, when the world was going through a pandemic, I ended up hitting a really rough season. My photography business basically died overnight because we couldn't be at a lot of in-person events. And my graphic design work, it slowed down because a lot of businesses didn't want to spend on marketing when everything felt uncertain. That uncertainty, it wasn't just hard on me, it put pressure on my marriage and my home life too. Anytime finances are shaky, routines become disrupted, and the future honestly feels a little blurry. It affects everything at home, especially when children are involved, like in my case. Now, we weren't in a bad place, but the stress, it was real. We were trying to navigate a world where no one had a roadmap for us. It was a lot. And during that time, I ended up taking a job at Good Life Fitness just to keep moving, literally and mentally. Honestly, that job ended up being one of the biggest blessings in that season of my life. I got to get out of the house, talk to people again, and actually feel useful. But what I didn't expect were the stories. It was my job to help people get started on their fitness journey. And I met people dealing with chronic pain, people recovering from major injuries. Some had physical limitations or disabilities they were fighting for strength and mobility and confidence. There were people who were rebuilding their lives in their own ways. And it was my job to listen to them. Something happened to me. Those stories reminded me that God wasn't done with people, even when their lives were flipped upside down. I could see how he was working in them, and sometimes through their resilience, sometimes through their gratitude, and sometimes just from the fact that they kept showing up. And the more I heard those stories, the more that they encouraged me, it ended up pulling me out of my own discouragement. They helped me believe that if God was working in them, in their challenges, then he hadn't forgotten about mine. Over time, slowly, things started to turn around, and I found my way back into the field that I love, marketing and design. Work picked up again, opportunities started opening up, and life began to regain a sense of direction. And my home life, it grew stronger. The same pressure that tested us ended up teaching us how to communicate better, how to support each other differently, and how to trust God in the middle of all of that uncertainty. Looking back, I can honestly say that those moments changed me, and they're a big part of why this channel is here today. I'm reminded daily how much strength there is in people's stories and how God uses someone else's testimonies to find hope in our own. And it's not always about defining it. There's a reason that testimonies matter so much, not just to me, but to anyone at any part of their faith journey. The thing about testimonies is that they remind us that we're not alone. Because let's be honest, life gets messy and faith gets confusing. We don't always feel strong and we don't always feel spiritual. But then you hear someone say, hey, I've been there. I've struggled with that. I've walked through that valley too. And suddenly you feel understood. You feel less crazy. You feel less isolated. Testimonies show us that God works through ordinary people in ordinary moments. They remind us that God doesn't give up on anyone, no matter how far you feel, no matter how stuck you think you are. Someone's story can open a door that a sermon never will. One person's vulnerability can be the key to unlocking healing in someone else. And that's why testimonies matter. The whole reason Kingdom Chronicles exists is because of how deeply testimonies have shaped my own life. I wanted to create a space where real stories could be heard. Stories from people who've been broken. They've been restored, confused, healed. They've been lost. They've been found. All of it. It's real life, not filtered. It's raw. To be honest, an even bigger part is the fact that so much of the internet is built around negativity. We start doom scrolling without even realizing it. The algorithm picks up every fear, insecurity, every piece of bad news, and it just keeps feeding it to us more and more. I wanted this channel to be the opposite of that. It's a place where your feed reminds you of hope, not just hopelessness, where the algorithm actually brings you something that lifts you up instead of just draining you. There are a lot of people out there that won't step into a church, but they will watch a story. And my hope is that these testimonies show up on their screens. They interrupt the noise. They might even shift what your algorithm thinks you need. Because someone scrolling late at night or someone else who's hurting silently, they might hear a testimony and then suddenly realize, okay, God maybe hasn't forgotten about me. Maybe there's still hope. Every video is someone opening a chapter of their life so that someone else can find their way forward and maybe even find something good in their feed again. Before I wrap up, I just want to say something directly to you, the person watching this video right now. You have a story. It might still be messy, it might still be unfinished, and it might even be something that you're not ready to talk about yet. But God can use it. Even the parts you don't understand right now. Sometimes the things that we survive become the exact thing that somebody else needs to hear. If you're ready to share your story, then you're welcome to do it here on this channel. I have a link in the description of this video where you can get started. Honestly, it's a simple process and I'd love to help you through it. If not, then that's all right. If you're not quite ready to share your testimony yet, but something in this video resonated with you, then stick around. This channel is full of real stories from real people, and I truly believe that one of them could speak to you. This one right here, that would be a great one to start with. And remember, what you've lived through matters. God isn't done writing your story. See you in the next one.